All right, let's dive right into this. You know, there is this strange, almost theatrical moral outrage that bubbles up whenever the beautiful game gets a little, well, ugly. We all pretend to be shocked, right? We act as if the sport has suddenly been dragged into a dark alley where honor, beauty, and sportsmanship have just been mugged by sheer cynicism. But in this explainer, we're going to look right past that outrage. We are focusing strictly on the reaction and the analysis. We're going to decode the tactics and really explore the raw, unfiltered reality of what it actually takes to survive when a football match basically turns into a war of attrition. We're breaking down the ethics, the psychology, and those unspoken rules of the sport. So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the beautiful game getting ugly, unpack the hypocrisy of the dark arts, analyze the strategy of sabotage, look at France's ultimate emotional test, and finally, discuss the referee's final responsibility. Kicking things off with Section 1, the beautiful game gets ugly, specifically looking at France versus Paraguay. So the catalyst for our analysis today is that incredibly tense, scratchy, and just downright awkward last 16 World Cup match between France and Paraguay. Picture this. France is basically trying to pass through a brick wall, while Paraguay is doing everything they can to turn the whole occasion into this grueling test of nerve and physical pain. Now, to really understand the intense reaction to this clash of styles, we need to define our terms first. The dark arts. What does that mean? Well, it encompasses fouls, disruption, provocation, delay, physical intimidation, and intense psychological pressure. And let me tell you, Paraguay was accused of using literally every single one of these tricks. I mean, Didier Deschamps, the French manager, even admitted he was genuinely terrified his star player would be chopped down late in the game, which actually forced him to assign his bigger players as bodyguards. So this wasn't just a physical test, it was a highly calculated psychological operation. And as you'd expect, the media reaction? Absolutely visceral. BBC pundit Joe Hart hit the nail on the head for a lot of people when he just called it an absolute disgrace. The media fury directed at Paraguay's calculated ugliness was practically tangible. Pundits, fans, you name it, people were genuinely offended by what they were watching. But, you know, this extreme reaction really forces us to step back and ask a pretty difficult question. Was Paraguay's performance an actual shameful betrayal of football, or was it simply the sport without its Sunday clothes on? Which brings us to Section 2, Hypocrisy and the Dark Arts, Subjective Lines. Because here's the really uncomfortable truth. These dark arts are not some kind of alien invasion. They have literally always been a part of the game. Our reaction to them, though, it reveals some serious cognitive dissonance. Think about it. If your center half takes a tactical yellow card to stop a dangerous counterattack, you're up on your feet praising it as a clever foul, right? But if the opposition does it, you scream cheating. If your goalkeeper slows the game down, oh, that's brilliant game management. If theirs does it, it's disgraceful time wasting. If your striker goes down easily, he's just smartly winning a foul. If theirs does, he's diving. We don't react as moral philosophers here. We react as tribal lawyers defending our own clients. And this double standard, it plays out on a massive global scale. The labels we use for the exact same physical behaviors change entirely depending on history, culture, and, frankly, whoever happens to be holding the microphone. Look at how Argentinian shithousery is romantically dubbed passion, or how Italian cynicism is praised as experience. A brutal English tackle? Oh, that's just proper defending. Yet somehow, South American aggression is universally branded the dark arts, while French composure gets to just be class. It's a really fascinating double standard when you dig into the analysis of the sport. Moving on to Section 3, the strategy of sabotage, the underdog tactics. If we actually strip away all that emotional reaction and purely analyze the tactics, we start to see exactly why a weaker team turns a physical game into a psychological experiment. Look, if you can't beat a giant like France in open space, you have to make that space dirty. You have to slow the giant down and honestly make him angry. Remember, they were playing in extreme 39 degrees Celsius heat. That's over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. France, a team completely known for flowing, elegant moves, was totally forced into a narrow, incredibly uncomfortable match. And the most telling stat of the whole thing? 0 shots on target from either side before halftime. 0. That doesn't happen by accident. That is highly disciplined, tactical work by Paraguay, specifically designed to completely neutralize France's rhythm. But there is definitely a tipping point. Football's dark arts are a lot like salt. A little bit sharpens the dish, right? It adds a much-needed edge and friction. But too much absolutely ruins the meal. Paraguay had every right to be compact and aggressive, for sure. But when a team becomes more interested in emotional sabotage than actually playing football, when frustration becomes the entire game plan, the spectacle really sours. Basically, they poured the whole packet of salt right onto the pitch. All right, Section 4, France's ultimate emotional test, surviving the worst. So how do elite athletes actually respond when the meal is ruined? We've analyzed the reaction of the media and the tactics of the underdog, but the true mark of champions is how they adapt to the volatile emotional weather of a match. Tournament football isn't just a talent show, folks. It's a psychological corridor. It is a pure survival mechanism. Contrast the pundits' emotional rage with the cold, highly analytical reality of Kylian Mbappé. He basically just noted that they knew exactly what kind of match it would be, and that they could play ugly football if required. This right here is the streetwise nature of champions. They don't just win the beautiful matches that suit them. They win the horrible, awkward ones where the pitch feels tiny, the referee seems lenient, and the opponent is doing everything to drag them down into the mud. The entire match really hinged on this one single question: could Mbappé be rattled? Ask yourself what Paraguay's true objective actually was here. At this level, Mbappé's no longer just a footballer. He's an entire system. Paraguay wasn't just defending a forward. They were attacking a symbol. The logic is simple. If they could frustrate Mbappé, they could infect the entire French team with that exact same frustration. They wanted France arguing about justice instead of actually finding a way through. And the outcome of all that psychological warfare ultimately comes down to this single number: 1. One successful second-half penalty by Kylian Mbappé following a foul on Désiré Doué. That penalty wasn't just the technical act of kicking a ball into a net. It was the ultimate statement of emotional control amidst absolute chaos. Think about it. After all the noise, the blistering heat, and the constant provocation, the whole world was spinning around him, but he still had to just stand there, stay totally still, and score. And he did. Let's look at our final section, Section 5, the referee's final responsibility: managing the chaos. Now, it's way too easy to just blame Paraguay and leave it at that. If we're doing a real structural analysis here, we have to look at the enablers of this behavior. When pundits are raging at a team's dark arts, they are actually, quietly, raging at the referee. A referee does not simply apply the laws of the game. A referee actually teaches the match what it is allowed to become. They act almost like a substitute parent. If the boundaries are soft, if ugliness and all that off-the-ball nonsense appear to carry absolutely no real cost, well, human nature dictates that players will naturally exploit that gap. The game didn't just become ugly by accident, it became ugly because it was allowed to. If football doesn't want matches constantly descending into this kind of disruption, we can't just rely on moral speeches after the fact. We need actual, systemic, mid-game solutions. Officials have to manage the chaos by following a few clear steps. First, book the early tactical foul to set the tone immediately. Second, stop the physical intimidation around the penalty spots. Third, instantly punish players who delay restarts. And finally, rigidly protect players from off-the-ball nonsense. Basically, consequences have to happen during the event, not in a press conference afterwards. So here is a final provocative thought I want to leave you with. We've established today that the dark arts are not outside the game, they're completely baked inside it. We secretly love the edge and the drama, even as we publicly condemn the cynicism. But as the dark arts threaten to turn every single match into a legal dispute with boots on, we have to ask, does football have the courage to control them before they control football? Really think about what values we truly want to reward in elite sports. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.